Hey guys, it's Hayes with CheatSheetPros.com. Today we're going to take a look at our college football best bets for week 11 using our NCAA betting sheet. So let's go ahead and get started. One of the first games we are going to take a look at today, well, I guess I should go ahead and start. We're going to go through the 5 or 6 games that are in the article, and then we're going to go over and hit the bonus game. So if you've read the article, you might have some of these already. So the first one is going to be Houston at Temple. So here we have Houston about 20% better as a team. PFF, which is typically very conservative, has this game at Houston minus 32. Our algo line has it at 21. The spread's 24.5, so it kind of falls right in the middle. But when I dig into the game a little bit more, I like the stuff that I see. One of the things here is your yard per point. Houston moves the ball very efficiently at a 10.6. And then Temple is very inefficient at 19.1. So a drastic difference there in yard per point numbers. When we look at the offensive and defensive side of the ball, Houston averages over 100 more yards per game. And then defensively, they are giving up 100 more yards a game. So we've got a gap difference here of about 206 to 207 yards. So the question is, with those 200 yards, how many points can Houston put up and get ahead? So I like Houston to lay the points here. 24.5 is a lot. But when we go down here and we look at Temple's last 4 games, let me pull up their game logs. And this is our point-wise sheet that we use for a lot of our data that is in our other videos. And it might be kind of hard to see on your screen. I tried to blow it up as much as I could. So let me pull up. So Temple's right here. And I'll go ahead and read it off in case you can't see it that well. So the last 4 games, Temple has scored 3, 7, 14, and 3 points. They got beat 52-3 by Cincinnati, which is expected. But then playing South Florida, Central Florida, and ECU, we would have expected a little bit closer matchup. And they got beat 34-14, 49-7, and 45-3. And then when we go down here and we look at Houston, let me find there. So we got Houston here. So look how many points they've scored. They're at 45, 40, 31, 44, 54. They're putting up an absolute ton of points. And I just don't think Temple has the offensive power to hang in this game. So we're going to lay the 24.5 here. And then going on to the second game that we like. And it's kind of scary. We like a lot of road teams this week. Georgia over Tennessee. Georgia's laying 20. And we have both the PFF line and our algo line covering it, although mine is pretty close to the Vegas spread. PFF, who's very conservative, has this at 28.9 points, so more than a touchdown over the normal spread. And then even our skew model down here, we got it projected about 38-14 with Georgia winning by 24 points. Georgia has not allowed more than 13 points all year. So when I went back and I was looking at their game logs, I was pretty, where'd they go? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, here's Georgia. So when we look down here, they haven't allowed more than 13 points all year. And in the recent games, they've allowed 6, 7, 13, 10, 0, 0, 13, 7, and 3. So their defense is outstanding. It's the number 1 defense in the land. And they're only giving up 232. I take that back. They're the number 2 defense in the land. Wisconsin has eclipsed them over last week. So they're only giving up 232.4 yards per game. And then Tennessee's giving up 450. So the main thing for me that jumps out right here is Georgia has the number 2 defense in offensive yards allowed. And then Tennessee's 105th. So Georgia's going to be able to move the ball. They're going to be able to put up points. And I don't think Tennessee can score enough to stay inside the spread. If this spread was 25-28, I would stay away from it. 20, I just feel like is too low. 24 is a fair number that I would put it kind of in the middle that you could stay away from. Tennessee also just played Alabama. So Alabama and Georgia, they're comparable teams. And Tennessee lost 52-24, so they lost by 28. And Georgia's a better team, so laying 20, I don't think is that hard. And then Tennessee, we're not worried about their home field advantage. They're 40% ATS since 2016, so we like that. And then going on to the next game, we have Iowa State over Texas Tech. So this line is Iowa State minus 10.5. Again, conservative PFF has it between 17 and 18 points. Our algo has it 11, so pretty close to the Vegas spread. And our skew model down here, we got it about 35 to 22, so Iowa State winning by 13 and covering the 10.5 point spread. What's impressive here is Iowa just beat Texas. Now, Texas has a power ranking of 52, and they beat them 30 to 7. They had huge edges, 23 to 11 in first downs, and then 476 to 207 total yards. They just completely dominated them on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Now they get to play Texas Tech, who has a power ranking of only 42, so they're 10 spots less. So looking at that, this line should be at least 16 or 17, so 10.5. I think we have to go ahead and lay that. Offensively, both teams putting up about the same, but again, your big difference here is the defensive yards allowed. Iowa State is 4th, allowing 283, and then Texas Tech is almost non-existent, 77th, allowing over 400. So I like laying the points here. 10.5 is too small of a spread, and if you tease it down, it's almost a no-brainer for me. And then moving on, the next game is going to be Oklahoma State against TCU. Now, this is one of the home games we have. So Oklahoma State at home, ATS is 56%. So anything over 55 is good. Anything over 60, that means their home field is really good. So Oklahoma State's been phenomenal. They are 3rd in defensive yards allowed per game at only 269. And then while both teams can move the ball and put some points on the board, the defensive side is what's jumping out at me. So we have the 116th rated defense in TCU versus the 3rd rated defense of Oklahoma State. So drastically different here. The spread here is 13, so PFF has it at 17. We have it at 14, so our algo is really close to Vegas, so we're basically saying, hey, it's a little light. However, whenever this algo for PFF that I built, it's very conservative, so when it has it covering, that's something that I really dig into and look at a little further. Our skew line down here, we've got it about 33-21, so we only have it 12, so slightly under the spread. But once you dig into this and you look at the game logs, it's one that I really like, OSU and laying the points here. Now, when we look at comparable teams, let me find Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma State is right here. And then where is TCU? I think I can get them on the same screen. Temple, A&M, Toledo, Troy, Tulane. And I just could not. Okay, they're down here. I just could not find them for the life of me. So we're going to look at these two games down here, and let me go ahead and grab a screenshot of this so we can see if that's more helpful in viewing it. So let's blow this up here a little bit. Let's make it bigger. All right, so I'm starting to get where it's cut off a little bit, so I can barely get. All right, so we're going to go with this because I can kind of get Oklahoma State there at the top. Oh, it shrunk on me again. And then TCU down here. Okay, so let's look at common opponents. So West Virginia, and then who else do we have as a common opponent? K-State is one. Whoops. And then K-State was back here. So Oklahoma State beat K-State 31-20. TCU lost 31-12. And then TCU just played Baylor. They played a really good game. So that would be the red flag here. They put up 570 yards on Baylor, but I think this is going to be a letdown game for them. But they won that game 30-28. But then they also played, oh, who was the other one we were looking at? K-State and then West Virginia. That was the other one. So West Virginia beat them 29-17. K-State beat them 31-12 before the game they had last week. And then Oklahoma State, they beat West Virginia 24-3. They pounded Kansas. They hung with Iowa State, which we just talked about is a really good team. They beat a decent Texas team. They beat Baylor by 10, and then they beat Kansas State 31-20. So Oklahoma State's playing really good right now. With those games, yes, laying the 13 points is quite a bit, but I like it there with what TCU's been giving up. One other impressive note that I earmarked down here is Oklahoma State held West Virginia to only 133 total yards and 11 first downs. But TCU is coming off of a game where they put up 570 yards against Baylor, but that kind of came out of nowhere. And let me see if I can find that OSU game from last week, and I'll show you what I'm looking for. So if you get these and you look at it, let me see, Oklahoma State. All right, here it is. So Oklahoma State, West Virginia. Let me see if that's on your screen. So down here, so Oklahoma State won 24-3. They took them in first down 17-11, and they only gave up 133 total yards and 11 first downs to West Virginia. And West Virginia's been a pretty decent team, so that was impressive. So that's why I like them to just clobber TCU here in this spot. So we've wasted enough time on this game. Let's go ahead and move on. One of the other games we have is Air Force and Colorado State. So Air Force, Colorado State, this line is only 2.5, which I was kind of shocked. My algo has it pretty close to that. We have Air Force -3, but PFF had Air Force at -15, so that was a drastic difference here. Now, these common opponents, it's kind of hard to see, so I'm not going to pull it up. So they've both played Boise State and Wyoming. So Air Force beat Boise State 24-17, and then Boise State beat Colorado State 28-19. And then they both played Wyoming. Air Force beat them 24-14, and then turned around and Wyoming beat Colorado State 31-17. So I would assume this line would be, 7-10. So when I saw it come out at 2.5, I was kind of intrigued. As far as yard per point, Air Force is better. And what is even more impressive, let me find this game last week. So, I should have earmarked this. So Colorado State last week, let me find this. So the one stat that really made me jump on this game, and if I can't find it here in a second, I won't waste your time looking for it. Okay, so Colorado State was at Wyoming. So let's go up here, look at the games, then I'll just tell you what it is, but I think I can find it. Colorado State, all right, right here. So Colorado State, Wyoming, let me slide that over, make sure you can see it. So what's impressive last week, is Wyoming put up 385 rushing yards against Colorado State. 385. That is an enormous number. So of their 477 total yards, 385 were on the ground. Now, the red flag, Air Force is the #1 rushing team in the land. They're putting up 294 rush yards per game. They can go bananas in this game. So 2.5 is such a small spread. I'll lay that any day of the week. So those are the best bets that I put in the article. Now I want to look at some bonus games with you real quick, and let me take a look at the video. I want to try not to run it super long. All right, so one of the other games, now these are games I like that didn't make the cut but almost made the cut. So Purdue at Ohio State. This will be a big talked about game quite a bit. So Ohio State's been absolutely phenomenal. PFF has it at 21. We got it at 25. The spread's 20. And I like taking Purdue plus the 20 here. They've been playing really well. Ohio State's putting up a ton of offensive yards. Defenses are about the same, but when we go back and we look at the game logs, so Purdue has been a dog in the last 4 games that they've played, and they've won 3 of them outright. So that kind of caught my eye, so to speak. And let me see, Purdue, where'd you go? Yeah, let me try to blow this up a little bit. All right, so Purdue, so they were dog in the last 4, and they beat Iowa 24-7 as an 11.5 point dog. They got beat by Wisconsin, but Wisconsin's a really good team right now. They played Nebraska as a 7.5 point dog and beat them 28-23. Then they played Michigan State as a slight dog and beat them 40-29. So Purdue's playing really good football right now. But so is Ohio State. I just think this line is too big. So when we go over here and we look at Ohio State and their recent game logs, gosh, there's so many teams. It's so hard to just scroll around. I should just screenshot and earmark these so I can look at them. All right, so we got Ohio State. So they played Penn State as a 20-point favorite, and they won the game, but they didn't cover, 33-24. Nebraska, 14-pointer, they didn't cover, 26-17. So the way Purdue's been playing, if you're going to give me 20 points, I'm almost going to take those 20 points. I like it. I don't love it. But Purdue's been playing really good. And Ohio State, they gave up 24 to Penn State, 17 to Nebraska. So, I mean, if Purdue could put up 20 and they're getting 20, I mean, Ohio State would have to eclipse 40 points against their defense that's sitting at 20th in yards per game. So I like taking Purdue plus the 20. That is not the popular opinion. The majority of the money right now is on Ohio State. So it's one I'm looking into, but it's one I'm also that I really do like quite a bit. And then going down, Michigan at, I think it was Penn State. Does Michigan play Penn State this week? I jotted down my notes as I was getting ready to start recording this, so let me just double check that. So Michigan, we're going to look up their game logs anyway. Okay, yeah, Michigan, Penn State, so I didn't want to give you the wrong team. So we're going to scroll over here. So Michigan and Penn State, this line is pick 'em. So right now you could go either way. 90% of the early money is on Michigan, and I like Michigan. I moved it down into my Tier 2 bonus wagers. This is one that I'm really intrigued by. Penn State doesn't have a huge ATS at home, so that's good. PFF has this at Michigan -7. We've got it at Michigan -4, and we can get pick'em right now, so I don't mind that. You've got the 20th versus the 90th offenses, and then the 6th versus the 40th defenses. So this is an advantage on both sides of the ball for Michigan, and they're playing really good right now. Michigan's putting up 451 yards per game compared to only 368 of Penn State, and then it's just the opposite on defense. They're giving up less than 300 yards per game, and then Penn State's giving up about 360. So we have about 140 to 150 yard edge for Michigan, and their YPPs, they're both better than league average, but Michigan's at a solid 12.5, and with 150 yards, I mean, there's no reason they shouldn't win this game by 10 points. When we come over here and we take a look at their game logs, they just pummeled Indiana 29-7. They lost a nail-biter to Michigan State 33-37. They pummeled Northwestern 33-7. They played a tight game with Nebraska. They beat a really good Wisconsin team, but I think Wisconsin got going after that. So the next thing I want to do is flip over and look at the Penn State logs and see kind of how they're doing. So LMNOP, we got Purdue, Penn State, there we are. So Penn State's playing really good football right now. They lost 33-24 against Ohio State as a 20-point dog, so that's a tough matchup. They did well. And then they pummeled Maryland, who hasn't really been doing good against big schools. So at pick, I really like Michigan here. I think that's the no-brainer play. And then sliding down the list, one of the ones I looked at was Georgia State, and I should have made some notes on this, and Coastal Carolina. Georgia State, Coastal Carolina. So this line is only 10.5, which I was kind of shocked because we have it, PFF has it at 16.5. We have it at 21. And you can see the offensive and defensive ranks. Coastal Carolina picks on these little schools, and they usually get a lot of little covers. They're pretty efficient. You can see they've got an 11.7 YPP, which is really good. And then they're putting up almost 500 yards a game, and then they're giving up almost 100 yards less per game. So we have a gap edge here of 196 yards for Coastal Carolina. So at a YPP of 11.7, that's going to give us, I'll show you a quick calculation. So we have a yard edge of 197. We're just going to round it up, say 200 yard edge for Coastal Carolina. And their YPP, which is yard per point, is 11.7. But let's just round that up by 12. So that gives them an edge of about 16.6 points. And PFF is close to that. They're 16.5. We've got it at 21. But they're only laying 10.5. So I thought that was a very small number. Even down here on our skew model, we've got it 37-18. And we've got Coastal winning by 19. So I like that one and laying the points. I'm going to make a little note on that real quick. Okay, and now let's flip on and look at Kentucky at Vanderbilt. That was another one that I wanted to go over on the video. So Kentucky is a road team, and Vanderbilt's just an automatic play against pretty much whatever they want to do. Kentucky's laying 21. And I move this down into the tier 2 plays because I don't know if Kentucky can roll up a big score. Now, statistically, we've got it. PFF has it at 33. We've got it at 24. They're laying 21. Our skew model down here, we got it 38-16. Vanderbilt is just bad. I mean, they're bottom 15 offense, bottom 15 defense. Offensively, they can't move the ball. 298 per game is just horrible, and they're giving up almost 500 yards per game. So Kentucky can pretty much do whatever they want here. Vanderbilt, when you go down and you look at their stats, they pretty much get blown out every game. And if you've watched any of our other videos, then you kind of know that's one of our go-tos. So they're 2-7. They played Missouri, and they hung with them 37-28. Mississippi State blew them out 45-6. They hung with South Carolina, surprisingly. Florida beat them 42-0. UConn's horrible, but they hung in that game. They won that game by 2 as a 2-touchdown favorite, and then Georgia beat them 62-0. And then let's go ahead and take a look at Kentucky, and I'll show you what the hesitation is for me. So Kentucky, they just played Mississippi State. They lost 31-17. And then they played Tennessee, and they lost 45-42. So they're playing close games, but now they get a bad team. They played really good against Georgia. They hung in there and only lost by 17. They beat a decent LSU team. They beat a good Florida team. They got by South Carolina. But this is what worries me. They played Tennessee, Chattanooga, or however you say it. And there wasn't even a line on the game, and they only won that game 28-23. So it worries me laying the 3 touchdowns. And then Mizzou is awful, and they beat them 35-28, but they only beat them by 7. The first game of the year against LA Monroe, they rolled up 45-10, but we haven't really seen anything else. So Kentucky has the ability to get the 21 points on Vandy, but I don't know if they can do it. I am intrigued by them putting up 42 against Tennessee, so that does show me they've got some offense, and they put up 42 against LSU, but I just don't know if they can run up the score or if they just play down to their opponent. So that's one game that I've kind of earmarked that I'm taking a look at. And then one of the next ones is Arkansas and LSU. And Arkansas is the road team, so they're going to be on the top. So Arkansas, LSU, we've got Arkansas by 5. I've got it by 2. Our skew model, we've got it a 5-point game, 31-25. The red flag on this one is the game that LSU just came off of. They just came off of a really good game. And then, yeah, I knocked this down into like a tier 3. The line on this is only Arkansas minus 2.5, so it's really close. So Arkansas is putting up 450 yards a game, which is really good. And they're allowing about 60 yards less per game than LSU, but they are on the road. But LSU's 44% ATS, so I'm not really worried about that. I like Arkansas to win a close game here. One of the hesitations I have is the game that LSU just played. And let me see if I can find it on here. So LSU, so they just played Alabama, and they almost won the damn game. They lost 20-14, but they hung in that game till the very end. So I think this could be a good letdown game for them. I think they left it all out on the field last week, but they are playing at home. But Arkansas is a tough team. Mississippi, they lost 31-17. Florida was basically a shootout. Kentucky, they got blown up by 21. Auburn, they hung in there by 5. So Arkansas has played some really good games. I think that they could squeak in there and get this win. I like it, but I don't love it. Arkansas played Mississippi State, beat them 31-28, but didn't cover. No line. Auburn got the best of them. They had a shootout with Mississippi. They got blown up by Georgia. A&M, they beat 20-10. So it's a game I'm leaning on, looking into. It'll probably come down to how I do on my early games of whether or not I bet that one. And then just to give you some of the games that have a lot of money on them on the PFF green line, games with a high percentage of money is USF +7 against SMU. So let's go ahead and take a look at that one. Let me see who the home team is. So SMU's at home against Central Florida. So SMU, and then how are they in here? UCF? Okay. So this line is UCF +7. We've got PFF has UCF favored by 3. We have SMU favored by 3. So yeah, I could probably see the +7. 98% of the cash was on the +7 for UCF in the early going. SMU is putting up a lot more yards, but they're also giving a lot more yards. Our SKU model has this as a 3-point game, 30-27. So I don't know why there's that much money on the UCF side, so I'm going to watch it through the week and see if it kind of moves around. But SMU's been good, but of course asking them to cover a spread is very hard. And then we got 99% of the cash was on Louisville against Syracuse, and Louisville was -3, and I couldn't figure this one out either. So we've got it at 2.2 and 3. Our model has it as a tight game. 5-4, 4-5. Nothing really jumps out at me. Yeah, Louisville's better on offense, but they're also worse on defense. Both teams are almost identical, so I wasn't sure why there was 99% of the wagers on Louisville -3, so that's one to keep an eye on. And then Utah at Arizona. This had 86% of the money on Utah -24, so I plugged it in, took a look at it. PFF has it about 25. We've got it at 30, so I don't mind it. Arizona's been atrocious. They're 96th on offense. Utah's kind of top third of the good teams, over 400 yards on offense, allowing a low 357 on defense, but 24 is a lot of points. Our SKU model, we got it 36-16, so we got Utah by 20. We've got a gap edge. We got Utah by about 100 more yards. And the YPP for Arizona is awful, so we don't think they'll be able to move the ball. I think 24 is a good line here. 86% of the money was hitting the Utah side, so I get it. I don't love it. That's a lot of points. Let's look at the Arizona game log. Sorry for the thunder. It is thunderstorming here now. And then let's go over here, look at Arizona real quick. So Arizona, their last 3 games, even though they're awful, they hung with Washington, only lost by 5. They hung with USC and lost by 7 as a 3-touchdown dog. And then they beat California 10-3. So, yeah, laying 24 against Utah, even though I think Utah is going to win that game. That is a lot. And then the other one that I earmarked was Oregon State -12 is getting 96% of the wagers against Stanford. So let's plug that one in, take a look at it. Stanford and Oregon State. So this line's Oregon State -12. We got it at Oregon State -7. PFF has it at -3. Stanford has just been awful. You can see how they rank offensively, defensively. So we've got it at like a 6-point game. YPP is kind of about the same, both giving up similar yards. Oregon State's going to have a gap here of about 115 yards. And when you do this rough calculation, let me pull up my calculator. So we give a yardage edge to Oregon State by about 115. And then you can see down here they're playing at a 13.5 YPP. So we're going to divide that by 13.5. So that gives them about an 8.5-point edge. Now, if we flip it up and let's say we give them 125 points and then we divide it by, let's say, 13, then that's still only 9.6 points and they're laying 12. So even though there's a lot of money on it, I haven't jumped on that side yet. So anyways, that's what I got, guys. My favorite bets to recap are Wisconsin -24.5 over Northwestern, Houston -24.5 over Temple, Georgia -20 over Tennessee, Iowa State -10.5 over Texas Tech, Oklahoma State -13 over TCU, and then I'm sliding in an Air Force -2.5 over Colorado State. Any other games I will post on Twitter as we get closer to the week. And good luck, guys, and go win some money.